So there's a new documentary called Charles in His Own Words, and it draws a comparison between the king and Prince Harry in Town and Country, according to Town and Country magazine. I think it's coming out tomorrow. It was done by this filmmaker called Tom Jennings, who says that the apple does not fall far from the tree, which is very intriguing because I saw this before in the two of them, and I did a video 6 weeks ago, something like that, where, especially in terms of the entrepreneurial gene that I think Harry got from his father. But you know what I saw yesterday, and I didn't have the time to highlight the photograph? I saw unequivocal proof that Harry is Charles's biological son, and it was a photograph of Harry when he was very little and his mom was holding him. He couldn't have been more than, I would say, maybe 3 years old, something like that. And his mom, Diana, was holding him. And I looked at that child's hands, and it was the exact prototype of his father's hands. The puffy, pudgy little fingers that he got from his father. I mean, he has two things for sure from Charles. The hands, they look different now because he's thinner and whatever. But look at, I wish I had saved that photograph. It is the exact prototype of these hands that I saw on that child, because Charles's fingers are very, very, very fat and puffy and weird. I suspect Harry will have the same when he gets older, but when he was a child, he had those fingers. So that's his biological son. And then, of course, you have the intellectual aspect. I think Harry is a lot more like his father in terms of the entrepreneurial side of his brain. Charles is quite the entrepreneur. I don't think a lot of people realize it because he's very, very stealth about it. He doesn't broadcast it. He's, maybe in that way he's a little different from Harry. He's more like William in terms of he doesn't broadcast stuff. Not that Harry does, but Harry's more open and he plays more, on his heart on his sleeve. Whereas you can't really necessarily read Charles all the time, and he's more secretive, but he's a Scorpio. They're kind of like that. Very, very secretive people. So he's, and Harry's a Virgo. I'm not sure. I don't know a lot about Virgos, but I know Scorpios are very, 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 very secretive. So Charles has that, but he's definitely an entrepreneur, and Harry definitely got that from him. So this article, not article, but this documentary that's supposedly coming out tomorrow that talks about, makes a comparison between King Charles and Prince Harry. I am not at all surprised that other people will find different ways in which they are quite similar. Also, the rebelliousness, too. I mean, if you think about Charles, Diana, and Camilla, and Charles going completely against completely against the wishes of his family to marry Camilla, his son did the exact same thing. I mean, for Charles, it was a bridge too far because, okay, I did it, but it was with it's a Caucasian woman, and she was English. I mean, what? Look at what are you bringing into this palace and this dynasty? You look at what you're bringing in. She's not one of us. So he does have some issues, as I've said before, that he probably knows he has it, but he doesn't want to change it. He feels that it's right that it should stay that way because he feels that without that, there's no monarchy because of how people think. And he's not totally wrong. I mean, there are many, many people in England and in the rest of the world who believe that by virtue of the fact that Meghan is a mixed race person in part of African descent and DNA, that she's presumptively disqualified and she's presumptively unfit. She just absolutely cannot be a princess. She cannot be a part of the British monarchy, the British aristocracy. It's just not possible, right? So there are many, many people who feel that way. And if the royal family, even if they had embraced Meghan 100%, would still have been at odds with that particular segment of the society. So Charles is particularly hard and harsh with Harry for this, even though he's really no different from Harry. And had he been the one to meet and fall in love with a woman who was, for whatever reason, not the prototype that is usually thought of as being the right type. She could have been Asian. He could have done a John Lennon and brought home a Yoko Ono or something, and it would have been met with a lot of resistance. Perhaps not as much as bringing home somebody with, the dreaded African DNA, God forbid. But he could easily have done something like that with a Yoko Ono or somebody like that. And he would have expected her to be accepted because he's that kind of a guy where it's his way or the highway, you see. And they would have bent over backwards to accommodate him. But he comes down really, really hard on Harry because, what's good for the goose, first of all, is not necessarily good for the gander in his universe, but also because Harry really went out there and brought in something that for him and for many people in the country and the world is just presumptively not possible. It cannot be reconciled. I mean, you just cannot reconcile even a drop of DNA from that continent, not from marriage anyway. So, yeah, but it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate. I think that Meghan is such a beautiful combination of her DNA. Like she really pulled the best from both sides physically anyway. And I think also just in terms of her personality, I mean she's so even tempered and I think she's a wonderful human species and specimen. And I think the fact that she does have DNA that is not monolithic, she's got different types of DNA in there. I think it actually has been to her benefit, but they can't get past that drop of whatever. And so he comes down really hard on his son. That said, it's something he has to work on, and he's already 73. He's probably not going to work on it in this lifetime. Maybe the next time around, maybe the next time around, but not this time. So there's this documentary, and it comes out, I think, tomorrow, but don't quote me on this. I have really no idea. I think it was done, though, with his blessing. And I think that that's him and Camilla back in the 1970s, apparently. That's a long time ago that they have been just, a thing, an item since 1970. This was in 1972. I mean, this is a long time ago. So you can't, it's hard to, what can you say? What can you say? I didn't know they slept together. Because they got together, that made her ineligible. Can you believe that? As his long-term partners. Okay, so he can take her to, yada, 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 yada. But then once he's done that with her, she's now so impure that she's no longer fit for marriage. How insane, right? How insane. This is crazy to me, especially through a modern lens. That's why she was never brought into the fold in the first place. He had to find someone virginal. He found Diana. By the way, I love the fact that after the separation between Charles and Diana, his Gallup poll rating was 4%. Wow. I think he's calculating and complicated, and that's part of his rebel nature. He has an agenda. He's playing a game that's much longer than anyone realizes, and I'm not quite sure if that's in his DNA or if it was learned, but there's evidence of it throughout the film. Wow. See, this is what I would say about Camilla and not Charles. Maybe I have this whole thing wrong. Maybe underneath all of these issues, it's really Charles and not Camilla. I mean, did you hear this? I think this is the guy who did the film. I think he's calculating. This is what I say of Camilla. She's calculated and complicated. How many times have I said that Camilla is complicated? And that's part of his rebel nature. He has an agenda. How many times have I said that Camilla has an agenda? He's playing a game that's much long, and she played the long game, right? And I'm not quite sure if that's in his DNA. Oh, wow. So, and that also is a part of the nature, I think, of the Scorpio is they are very, very complicated, very, 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 very intelligent people, very, very calculating, very complicated, and very secretive, right? So yeah, so maybe underneath poor Camilla is the victim. She's no match for Charles and his calculating nature. He was the one who probably wanted her all along, and he just bided his time until he split up her marriage. And I think I've always thought of it as the other way around, that Camilla bided her time and she got married to spite Charles because he passed her over. Well, poor Camilla probably just like accepted it, went on with her life, and this calculating man here is the one who, you know, yeah, was calculating and didn't stop until he broke up her marriage. It's quite possible. Anyway, I gotta go. It's enough. But what is this going to be called? I have no idea. What is the name of this video? This video is going to be called, oh, the documentary Charles. What was it? Charles in his own words or something like that? Yeah, that's what this is. I think it's tomorrow, isn't it? I have no idea. Don't quote me. I have no idea.